You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode.
There are puppets in peril in our Fab Fact.
We're feeling the pressures of command in the randomizer.
And it's back to Elstree for more Morris Bright.
That's all coming up in Pod 95
of the Gerry Anderson podcast.
Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Hello, here we are again.
You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
Just a minute, what was that all about?
Well, that was our very own Robbie Stevens giving us a brand new introduction. And that's actually been recorded for something else which is coming up and I might mention a bit possibly later in the news.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But I thought I'd make use of it. So isn't it snazzy?
Yeah, it is rather snazzy. Thank you, Robbie. That was good.
Yeah, thanks, Robbie.
Yeah, I like it.
So you're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production, which is the Gerry Anderson podcast.
Hooray.
That's the thing you're listening to right now. I'm Jamie Anderson and he is...
Richard James. Still, that's right, we're here for the next, at least an hour or so, with all the usual stuff. We've got news from the Gerry Anderson universe. That's the amazing thing. Even with the world the way it is, we've still got stuff to talk about. New stuff coming up, which is fantastic. Mm-hmm. We've got lots of emails again. It's almost like people have been stuck at home with nothing to do over the last week. Lots of people have been sending in their emails to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. So again, I'll be reading out a bumper crop of E's from our listeners. We've got the third part of Jamie's interview with Morris Bright from Elstree Studios. I said the third part. It's not the third, is it? It's the second.
It's the second part.
Yes.
Not quite as good. There is no third part. No. The third part is silence.
Well, it might well be, unless we can find someone else for next week.
Don't worry, after that we've got David Holt from Lavender Castle. There's
done.
more. I'm arranging more all the time.
Yeah, good.
Although I have sent a couple of emails to agents of, celebrity fans and heard back that they're busy, which is obviously not true at this time.
Really?
So, I don't think we're going to get them.
Yes.
Anyway, Chris Dale's coming up later as well with his randomizer, and I've got a fab fact coming any moment after we've stopped talking.
Have you? Well, does that mean I should stop talking now?
Well, unless there's anything else you want to say?
Not right at the moment, no.
Okay, in that case, let's do our fab fact.
Cool.
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
Every week we bring you a fab fact.
It's true.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
And what about you, listener? Did you know that? Thought so. That must be because you've listened before.
Yeah.
But just in case you haven't listened before, Fab Facts goes as follows. I have a book of Fab Facts. I flick through the book of Fab Facts, which shouts fab at a random point. I stop flicking the pages, and then I read out a fact from that page.
Breathe.
So without further breath, shall we do that? Here we go.
Fab.
1963.
Oh, yeah.
A fine vintage for Anderson stuff, if ever there was one.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm talking about vintages. This is a fact about Stingray,
Good.
but a disastrous fact for two characters from Stingray. Sort of.
Yeah.
We'll call it double drama for the Stingray puppet department.
Okay, go on.
How's that?
Yeah.
So, Troy Tempest, as you know, Richard, because I know you're a big fan of the actor he was modelled after,
Oh, yes. James
that
Garner.
actor was.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's right.
Absolutely. The late Alan Patillo, who was director of the first episode, was particularly impressed with the puppet when it arrived on set because it had a slight squint that made his eyes look more expressive.
I see.
But as soon as he said, I love this squint, the puppeteers rushed him off back to the workshop for some corrective surgery.
Oh, no.
And Troy then appeared without the squint because the puppeteers thought, that makes him look imperfect, and they wanted him to be absolutely wonderful and marvellous and handsome.
Interesting.
So Alan was never quite as thrilled when the non-squinty Troy returned to set, but that was that. He was stuck with him.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just the goodies who suffered from injury. Titan also suffered from a calamitous moment.
Right.
Christine Glanville had just finished working on the head and had delivered him to the wardrobe department for dressing. But as she walked out the door of the wardrobe department, she heard a crash.
Uh-oh.
she ran back in to find that Titan's head had been dropped.
Oh.
But not like a slight dent or anything.
Yeah.
The head had been smashed beyond repair. Christine then scooped up the remains and took him back to the workshop to start all over again.
Oh.
So who knows what that other Titan looked like? I mean, I'm
Yes.
pretty sure that with Christine's skill, it would have been pretty similar. But,
Yes.
you know, the Titan's beard had all sorts of incredibly detailed little rope curling work done.
Sure, yeah.
You know, produce that beard. And that must have taken Christine hours and hours, as well as the paint job and the rigging of the internal mechanisms, that sort of stuff. So, poor Titan, poor Christine.
Wow.
And I wonder what Squinty Troy would have looked like.
Squinty Troy. Now, what would they have been working from then, Jamie, the model makers? From designs, pictures only, or from sculpts in clay, or what would be
So
the
they would
process?
have done a clay sculpt,
Right.
then created a mould, and then I guess at that point they were starting to work in fiberglass. So, yeah, fiberglass head.
Yeah.
So the thing that Christie would have produced would have gone to wardrobe.
Yeah.
It would have been the full body with the fiberglass head on, with all the mechanisms inside.
Wow.
But as you know, fiberglass is hard.
Yes.
But it does break, and when it breaks, it's, the fibre is exposed essentially.
Yeah.
So that lovely smooth finish is destroyed forever.
So that's quite a long process to have to go through again because you dropped it.
Yeah, well, she would have had to make a whole new head from the mould.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, not easy.
No, absolutely. Oh.
There you go.
Yeah, it's a vaguely interesting fact, Jamie. Well done.
Vaguely, yeah. It's the best I can do this week.
Yeah.
That brings us to the end of this week's vaguely interesting
Head fact. There you go. Well, I wonder if I can have my head taken back to be realigned then. Is that possible?
You have to drop it on the floor first.
Yeah, exactly, that's right. You're listening to the Gerry Anderson podcast. Now, please, 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 just take a moment, if you would, to head on over to whichever platform you're listening to us on and just leave us a nice review or a rating, or as we're calling them, a revating. Just
so
like
glad
Martin,
you've adopted that.
Yeah, Martin Laybourne did, aka Blunderbirds. He says, "Hello chaps, I just rated your podcast after 91 continuous listens." And he wrote, "I've just finished listening to all 91 pods. Jamie and Richard guide you effortlessly through the worlds of Gerry Anderson, aided by Chris Dale's randomizer. Even if you're new to the works of Gerry Anderson, I thoroughly recommend this podcast, which has something for everyone." Which is rather nice, isn't it?
We like to think so, yeah.
And then he also said, "P.S. Here's a joke for you, Jamie. Now, what did UFO's Gay Ellis say to her new Moonbase employee?"
I don't know. What did she say, Richard?
Well, she said, "Until you find your feet, you'd better shadow me." Yeah? I mean, see what it is, though. I'm not sure it works entirely. But
I think I've just seen a tumbleweed pass outside.
Ah.
I know, that's
So,
weird, isn't
yes,
it?
do leave us a lovely review and a rating as well. And don't forget, you can share us with your friends if they happen to be Gerry Anderson fans, or even if not, and they'll get to listen to us too. And that'll be marvellous.
They might be converts by the end of listening to this podcast.
That's right. Or
not.
Convicts. Yeah.
Nice. I hadn't thought about that,
No.
but there's a worry, yeah. Don't share this too liberally then.
No. Also, you can get in touch with us, of course. Do send your emails into podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk or pop on over to our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/podsterons. Join in the fun there, or hashtag us on Twitter. You can tag him, I'm Jamie Anderson, me, Richard N. James, and hashtag us Gerry Anderson Podcast, and we'll see your tweets there.
Please do those things.
Yes.
And I might reply to you with a Gerry Anderson GIF.
Oh, yeah, there are
Because
plenty
there
of them.
are many, many, many Gerry Anderson GIFs. If you're looking for a GIF to use on Twitter, then just search Gerry Anderson or your show name of choice, like Space Precinct, for example.
Well, my favourite, of course, is the old Orin facepalm moment, which comes in
Yes.
very useful.
It does regularly used. In fact, I've seen you tweet that several times today.
Yeah, I think you're right, yeah.
So make sure you're using those. In fact, why don't you tweet us with your favourite Gerry Anderson GIF? Hashtag Gerry Anderson Podcast and a quick, amusing title for your GIF of choice.
Yeah.
How about that?
Great. That'd be fun.
And we can describe them in audio next time.
Yes, we'll try.
Should we have some Gerry Anderson news?
Is there some Gerry Anderson news?
There's always some Gerry Anderson news.
Let's hear the Gerry Anderson news.
Here it is, the Gerry Anderson news.
News.
I'm not sure people quite caught what this section's called, but do you want to just remind them quickly?
What the newsy news?
Yeah, the
Newsy.
Gerry Anderson news.
Yeah, that's it.
That's all we've got.
Yep.
Now, Richard, whether you are religious or not, many of you will know that this coming Sunday, after release, is Easter Sunday.
It is, yes.
Yes, when we celebrate the laying of chocolate eggs by rabbits.
Okay.
Or something like that.
Yeah, I think it might mean a bit more to some people, but yeah. Okay.
No, I know, but everyone will see Easter eggs on the shelves and that kind of stuff when they manage to make it out to the shops when they're allowed.
Yeah.
How strange. Anyway, we're having a giant Easter sale.
Oh, good.
On the Gerry Anderson store, because we're very lucky in that our fulfillment warehouse is still working, even if our clothing manufacturer guys are not.
Yeah.
So if you go to the Gerry Anderson store, shop.gerryanderson.co.uk, from this Thursday right through to the end of Easter Monday, there's 20% off everything that we hold in stock.
Okay.
So that's
wow.
DVDs, Blu-rays, CDs, LPs, keyrings, badges, patches, toys, model kits, and more.
Lovely.
Pop along, save 20% off everything, and grab yourself a bargain, because we can still ship stuff.
Yeah,
so
brilliant.
Do it then. No codes or anything required. It'll just be 20% off everything already applied. Now, Richard.
Yeah.
If I said to you, Anderson Insiders, would that mean anything to you?
Is there such a thing? Am I an Anderson Insider?
You're always an Anderson Insider, Richard. Yes, so while things are quiet on the production front, while we've got this sort of indefinite pause on commissioning and pre-production and production, we found ourselves with a bit more time. For a while now, I've wanted to make some elements of the Gerry Anderson archive available to people in a sort of subscription way. Yeah. Like Patreon.
Oh, yes.
Where people can go along and see special stuff about the creative process, etc., by kind of becoming a supporter or a subscriber, if you will, whatever you want to call it. So I brought forward plans for that, and you can now become an Anderson Insider from as little as £5 per month.
I see.
Which will give you access to all sorts of goodies, including discounts to the Gerry Anderson store.
Okay.
Bits and pieces from Dad's archive, including videos and audio clips. A monthly wallpaper produced by the marvellously talented Chris Thompson.
Brilliant.
And opportunities to have a chat with people like you and me, do watch-alongs, etc., that kind of thing.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So if you go to patreon.com, that's patreon.com, and just search for Anderson Insiders, then you can join us there. Now, you don't have to do that.
No.
I understand completely that a lot of people have had pay cuts or have been made redundant, that sort of thing, so there is absolutely zero expectation from us. But if you would like to support what we do, and you'd like to see some extra bits and pieces that we don't normally have the opportunity to put out anywhere, then we would love it if you would join us. Yeah. We put out all sorts of stuff for free, including this podcast and all of our YouTube videos and all the content on the website and a weekly newsletter. Yeah. And all that sort of stuff. For free. All of our social activity, totally for free. Yeah. So all of the stuff that is paid, in inverted commas, like merch from the Gerry Anderson store, or indeed joining this Patreon, it just subsidises what we can put out for free.
Yes.
So, you're basically showing your gratitude for the free stuff and helping us make more. Yeah. So if you can, we'd love you to join us. If you can't, please don't worry. There's no pressure at all.
No, and nothing else will change. If you can't, you'll still get the podcast every week. You can still join the Facebook group and join in the fun there. We're not withholding anything from anybody, are we? I suppose it's just little extras for those that want to support.
Exactly. We're just opening up a new avenue of stuff. Yeah. We're making some other stuff available for a small fee that hasn't been available before.
Yeah, lovely.
So, yes, hopefully see you there over at Anderson Insiders.
Lovely, yes, good.
Richard, I don't know if you've heard of this television series from the 1990s. It's called Space Precinct.
Space what?
Space Precinct.
It's
a weird word, isn't it?
Jamie. Why does that... Yeah, that does ring a bell.
I think it's a Gerry Anderson show.
I think it must be.
What we've done is put up a couple of free episodes of this Space Precinct over on the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel. Yeah. We've chosen a couple of episodes called The Fire Within, parts 1 and 2.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, no, it's coming back to me now, yes, because I don't know if you know this, Jamie, but I was actually in Space Precinct. I don't like to talk about it too much, but if you are going to watch The Fire Within...
But you say too much, you've literally never mentioned it before.
I know, keep the lid on it, but if you are watching The Fire Within, look out for Officer Orin, of course.
Right, who's that then?
Well, he's one of the, I think it's the tallest Creon of the bunch, certainly the hairiest.
The tallest and most handsome,
I would say so, yes.
Yes. Anyway, part 1 is already out of this thing, and part 2 is coming out on the 8th of April at 6:30 p.m. It'll be premiering on the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel. So if you want to watch along live, have a chat with some fellow fans in the YouTube chat.
Oh, yes.
Then that might be a nice thing to do.
Now, I have a YouTube channel, so does that mean I can watch and comment and join in? Ah.
Yeah,
well,
Richard, you can join in and give some feedback on... Because nobody will know that you're in it.
No,
so
exactly.
it'll be a really nice surprise for everyone watching along. There's loads of other stuff over on the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel, including the most recent Thunderbirds Legend video.
Yeah.
All about the history of how Jeff Tracy came to set up International Rescue and build all the Thunderbirds vehicles.
It's going down very well, isn't it?
It's going down extremely well. In fact, Part 3 is now massively overtaken Part 2 and is soon set to take over Part 1, bizarrely.
Fantastic.
Which is a bit strange.
Yeah.
And finally from me, for this one, over at the Gerry Anderson store, although we can't create new products for you right now that are physical, we can create new digital products. As you know, I may have mentioned we're doing some audiobook recordings, which may be possibly the reason we've got this new intro from Robbie Stevens.
Uh-huh.
But I've also put out very recently a 45-minute interview with Martin Landau from 1994.
Yeah, great.
And also a special extra feature that was put out with the Breakaway Special Edition Big Finish release, which is 40 minutes of me, Nick Briggs, and archive clips of Dad talking about Space 1999. They're both available for $1.99 each for immediate download or streaming, and you can get them from shop.gerryanderson.co.uk, and just go to the shop by product and click downloads, and you'll see them there, along with loads of free stuff and some other audio goodness.
Yeah, lovely. Well, that sounds exciting.
Yeah, I think that's probably quite enough Gerry Anderson news, isn't it, for this week?
Well, you say that, Jamie. I don't know if you know, but of course, in the week just gone, it was April the 1st, April Fool's Day. And a few people were taken in by nothing that we said, because I thought, well, perhaps
we're
now
far
is
too
the
sensible
time,
for that.
really, to,
Yeah.
But someone posted on the Get Reading website, an imaginative sculptor wants to pay tribute to the amazing history of Thunderbirds in Slough by adding giant models of the Tracy family to the town centre. The marvellously named Irish designer Flora O'Pear is the woman behind the ambitious plan and is hoping to liven up what she calls the drab town centre in the Berkshire town. She told Berkshire Live that she envisages having 10-foot-high models of the famous puppets scattered around the town. She's also hoping that Slough Borough Council will be open to the idea of huge replicas of the Thunderbirds themselves in the town's parks and leisure spots. She said she was inspired by the idea of the Thunderbird-themed hotel that will be opening in the town soon, and so that no work will be done until the government gives the all-clear to return to normal after the ongoing coronavirus crisis. So there you go, a perfectly innocuous story, you would think, until you dig a little bit deeper and realise that the designer's name, Flora O'Pear, it's actually an anagram of April Fool.
Oh,
Yeah.
I did wonder about that name.
Yeah, and some people were taken in. But interestingly, everyone, even the ones that were taken in, thought it sounded like a really good idea.
It does sound like a great
Yeah,
idea.
doesn't it? 10-foot-high sculptures of the Thunderbirds.
Yeah,
Amazing.
let's do it.
Absolutely. Let's do
We
that.
need to make this happen.
So there you go. A little bit of news to finish off with that wasn't news at all.
No, but maybe news in the future.
Ah, we shall see.
Let's see. Okay, well, that's definitely then the end of this week's Gerry Anderson News.
That was the news. April Fool news.
Nice, very timely.
Thanks. Now you've got to
Bit
excuse
late.
me, Jane. I've just got to let the cat out because she's scratching at the door, and then I'll be back.
Okay,
We'll
you
carry
do
on.
that.
Okay.
Okay.
Go on then.
Well, while Richard is doing that, after he reads out some stuff, we'll be going back to Maurice Bright from Elstree Studios. And as I said, I've got David Holt. That's a bit rude, Richard. After that, we've got David Holt from Lavender Castle for the next couple of weeks. And beyond that, I'm not too sure. Right, Richard's coming back now, so hopefully we'll be able to get on with some emails and stuff.
What?
And I was literally just filling in, and then as I was talking, you said something about you big idiot.
Yes, I did.
So that was a bit rude. Yeah, so hopefully that'll be left in, and you will have just heard all that nonsense,
Yeah.
Podstrons. Now I'm hoping that Richard is going to fill in with some emails or Facebook comments or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Got lots of emails. This is from Robin Matthews, for example, who says, "Hi, Jamie." He just says, "Hi, Jamie. I
Great.
recently heard Richard James speaking on Anderson actors who had parts in Bond films. Perhaps he's forgotten the others who also made it with Ed Bishop and Michael Billington. Stephen Burkhoff, who played Interceptor pilot Steve Minto, actually had a starring role in Octopussy. Yes, Robin, he did, and Space Precinct, of course. Also, David Healy, who played Shane Weston, also played the Houston radar operator, uncredited, in You Only Live Twice. Now, I think he was in Space Precinct too, wasn't he, David Healy?
rings a bell.
Maybe not. I'm pretty sure that he may also have done some other voiceover work on the earlier Bond soundtracks. David Healy and Derek Meddings also both worked on the Supergirl movie. I'd hate to see these two fine Anderson actors forgotten or not mentioned in their Bond roles. I enjoy your podcasts, although I must confess to missing a few that I will try and catch as I get the time. Thank you for keeping the Anderson world alive. That's from Robin Matthews, fan from the early 60s to the present. Thanks, Robin. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for bringing up those names. Of course, we can't mention everybody. You know, it's a finite podcast we have here. Only lasts about an hour or so. But
it may not feel that way, but it is.
And secondly, I've got another email here. This one is from James Pilson Wood, who says, "Hi team. Firstly, thank you for all the continuing to produce content for the Podstrons and the wider community. It really brightens up the day. I'm sure I speak for all Podstrons when I say we would love to hear an audio version of Space Precinct Unmasked. Something you mentioned last time, Jamie. Go for it," says James. All right. On the merch front, he says, "I would love another pistol. I love my Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet, and I'd love a Stingray one. Lastly, a little idea for interviews. Maybe have some Podstrons submit some audio questions for you. For Richard and Chris and Jamie. A bit more work in the edit, but could be something to bridge any interview gaps. Hope everyone stays safe, from James Pilson Wood." So a number of things there. Space Precinct Unmasked on audio. That could happen, James. Working on it, even as we speak. And also he'd like a Stingray pistol. What are the chances?
Not up to me. Certainly nothing that will happen in the next few months because of the current global situation.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's noticed that. Bit weird, isn't it? And yeah, but that's a possibility.
Yeah.
And then what was the other question? Oh, interviewees and Podstron questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do that potentially maybe for the 100th. That would be a thing to have a few voices. Because didn't we do 50 questions for the 50th?
We did.
I don't think we need to do 100 questions for the 100th, but maybe something like that.
Yeah, so do send in your audio files then of your questions for me or Jamie or Chris to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. Just record them on your phone and send them in, and we'll try and include them for our 100th podcast.
Yes, and do try to keep all clips to less than 30 seconds, please. It really helps us with the edit.
That's right. Nice and brief. Exactly. And finally, Martin Bauer says, "Did you know that the tube that runs all the way around Thunderbird 5 is made from 4 Volkswagen exhaust tubes painted gold?"
Well, that's the Martin Bauer who worked on Anderson shows and is a very well-known model maker who's taken it upon himself to send us some information. Thank you, Martin. I did not know that. Yeah. Did you know that, Podstrons? Amazing. We love a bit of kit bashing and all that sort of stuff, don't we? I mean, nothing will ever be as obvious as the lemon squeezer in Thunderbird 1's launch day.
True enough.
Yeah.
Lovely.
What else have you spotted on screen that's clearly from some other source? I know they used a lot of Hoovers for buildings back in the 60s.
Great.
Sort of domed, futuristic-looking Hoovers.
Nice.
Yeah. What else have you spotted? Let us know.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Great.
Are we doing a Plot of Peril this week?
Well, we have had a few emails. I say a few. We had a couple, didn't we, last time?
We had 2 emails.
Yeah. Suggesting that one thing that they would like to see the return of is the Plot of Peril. So, what do you think? I mean, I've still got the machine over here in the corner. Do you want... Yeah, come on, I think we should.
Let's do it. Okay, here we go. Take the blanket off.
Let me just... Okay, there it is. Right, here we go. There, what do you think of that?
Gosh, it's shinier than I thought it would be after all this time. A bit less dusty, but that's because you kept it well covered.
I keep it well buffed, Jamie. The plot device.
What a relief.
So, yeah, okay, let's do a Plot of Peril. We did mention this last time, that perhaps I would do it for the 95th podcast, give you 5 weeks to submit your plots, and we'll read out the winner on the 100th podcast in 5 weeks' time. So, I'm now going to pull the shiny lever on my plot device, and I'm going to give you a character from the Gerry Anderson universe. I'm going to give you a location and a household item, and it's up to you, dear listener, to send in a suitably Gerry Anderson-esque style plot that encompasses all those 3 things. Are you ready? Here comes your character. Oh, it's Thunderbird's Tintin.
Oh.
Right. Okay. A location? Yeah. Oh, it's the Big Pit Mine. That's the museum near you, isn't it, Jamie?
That is the Welsh Museum of Coal Mining. How strange that should come up.
Right, there you go. The Big Pit
Museum
in Wales is your location. And finally, then, your household item. Yeah. A garlic press.
Oh, a very useful utensil in a rescue scenario.
So there you go, Podsterons. Do your best with those three things. Put them into a coherent and short Gerry Anderson plot and send them into podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. If you fancy doing them as an audio file, all the better, and I shall read out and play a few for our 100th in 5 weeks' time.
I cannot wait.
Nice to see the return of the Plot of Peril, wasn't it?
It certainly is. Good old plot device still working there.
Yeah, I'll put it away for another week anyway. Just leave it. There. Great.
Perfect. Nicely done.
Thanks.
What's not to like about the plot of Peril, eh?
Exactly.
Oh, goodness me. Right, shall we get on to our interview?
Oh, well, I think we should, yes. We're wasting more than enough time.
Yeah, I agree. Total waste of time. Maurice Bright, chairman of Elstree Studios, is back for part 2 of our chat about everything ITC, Thunderbirds, and Gerry Anderson. Remember, this was done over the phone, so it's a little bit ropey in terms of quality, but Maurice was full of nuggets of fascinating information and the occasional dad joke. What's not to like about that? So here he is, part 2, with Maurice Bright. And then what about leaving the puppet stuff behind, Maurice? You said, the live action drama side of it. So we drop the puppets out of that and we go into the world of UFO and Space 1999. Were they on your radar?
Yeah, well, they were on my radar, but they weren't things that I was hugely... It's not about being a fan of. It's about, again, living in a home where you've got one television and you've got four kids and 2 adults. And it wasn't really something that we tended to focus in on. I suppose that at that age, I was about 10, 11 or 12. I was just going off to boarding school as well. And so I didn't get a chance to watch TV for those years. I think it was about late 70s, aren't we, really? And that's when I was at boarding school. So they weren't really on my radar. And I suppose to help me get through sort of boarding school, and I didn't mind, I wasn't objecting to going. I tended still to be focusing on comedy. And so I would be listening late at night on the radio with headphones in the boarding school to Radio 2 and old episodes of Steptoe and Hancock and the news headlines and things like that. I wasn't getting an opportunity to see the live action stuff. I did some years later, but I wasn't at the time. And of course, looking back now historically, that was, of course, the time that things like Star Wars were coming out and being made as well. So, but no, unfortunately, that wasn't really on my radar at that time, no.
No, but strangely enough, you've ended up being chairman of the place that was the home of, at least part of, UFO, and Shadow headquarters, and Neptune House is the front of Harlington Straker Studios. So you've ended up connected to it regardless.
Absolutely, and your dad, of course, was working at Elstree. Was supposed to be working at Elstree for UFO, but because of the issues at the time around the studios generally in Elstree, went back to Pinewood. And I had a wonderful interview. I met your dad. We can talk about that shortly. But he was supposed to be at Elstree, but it does all kind of come a bit full circle, doesn't it? And it's nice. I mean, I've got DVDs now of most of the shows and films, well, not most of the films, but most of the shows that have been made at Elstree over the years. It's not just because I think the studio should have them, because I think it's interesting to watch how the input varies, or the output rather varies. And yes, it's interesting your dad was there, but then he went back to what he considered home as Pinewood. And I can understand why. I mean, I was there, had an office there for about 12, 13 years. I got married there. So what did Victor Kiam say? He said, I liked the company so much I bought it. Me, I loved Pinewood so much I got married there. Bit of a busman's holiday, but I got married there in 2006, and I can understand why your dad thought of it. But yeah, he was at Elstree for a while.
Yeah, I don't know what the exact period was. I mean, what in your experience of being, Mr. Studio Historian, what do you know of that period? Can you give us some context for why the production left Elstree and went over to Pinewood? Well, the industry generally was going through a difficult time, the film and television industry. It was moving to 4 walls. So for people who are listening to this, historically, you had film companies like Rank Organisation or Associated British Picture Company and so on. And they actually were production companies as well as distributors. So they would own their own studios. So Rank Organisation, they owned Pinewood. Associated British Pictures owned Elstree at Ealing. Michael Balkan and his people own Ealing. And what you would do is you'd have your own people there. So you'd have your own directors and producers on the books. You'd have script writing people. You'd have all your own technicians and everything. And you would literally have your studios make a film and then distribute the film to the cinema chains that you own. So like I think Rank owned the Odeon chain. And that was the big circle of film. And that was all coming to an end.
basically, because financially it wasn't really a model that worked anymore, and everything was going what was called four wall, which meant you were brought in the people you need. You rented the space. Effectively, we all became glorified hotels, and I don't mean that in a negative way. That means you've got a space, you come in and rent it, you bring the people in that you want to make your productions, and you go. Now, you still had people who were on site that could do work, and they were and be there available for you, and you had your chippies and your electricians and so on. But there was quite a tough period in the 70s with the unions historically, and the unions were very strict about when people should finish filming. And I remember Brian Forbes, who you'll remember, not just an actor and a great director and a producer and a writer, married to Nan Newman. He passed away a few years ago, but he was managing director of Elstree for about 5 years, from the late 60s to about the mid-70s. And he found that being creative was becoming more and more difficult because of the constraints being put on them by the unions at the time. And in addition to that, the 70s was a time of some unrest nationally, and you'd end up having power cuts. So you'd end up having a day as when literally the powers went off, but all the studios had to get generators in. Now, that affected the output. So, for example, Elstree Studios was where they made the On the Buses film trilogy. On the Buses, a huge sitcom in British television history, and they did what many sitcoms went and did. And in this case, the Hammer people, who previously were mainly doing Hammer horrors and thrillers, they were making low budget but big screen versions of television sitcoms. So they made the On the Buses trilogy. They made three of them: 71, 72, 73. Now, I know this because I spoke to the late producer Roy Skeggs, but also Reg Varney, who played one of the lead roles, told me. He took an HGV test. He qualified to be able to drive a bus. And the reason why that was particularly useful was because if you were in a studios like Elstree at the time that were filming something like the Up Pompeii film, which was with Frankie Howard, Up Pompeii is a historical film, so it has to be filmed at a studios. On the Buses, which is about current day, and people obviously on the buses, it could be filmed out on location. So Reg, in the morning, you'll get the cast and the crew and the lighting and the makeup people all on a bus, and they drive round to what was Ayes and Boreham Wood, which is near the studios, and do a lot more on location. And that's because there was a limited amount of power, and so they couldn't go into the studios all the time because the historical films were being there, or the historical Hammer horror films were being made there. So there were technical issues around in the stages at the time, and it just became very difficult. The industry went through a tough time. And in the mid to late 70s, there were other studios in Elstree and Bournemouth that were shutting down. We used to have 12, I think, historically, and then it went down to a couple. So it was a period of uncertainty for the industry generally. Everyone was having issues. But it meant that some of the other studios started to fill up very quickly. So your dad went back to Pinewood. It's one of the reasons that Superman went to Pinewood, because Shepperton got very busy. Superman wasn't supposed to be there. So everyone was moving around to find an area where they could actually just work and feel comfortable. So that's kind of a big picture of why it was that people were moving around. Obviously sad that your dad went back to Pinewood, but completely understand it because, again, a bigger studios, and it had a mansion house in the middle of it, which made it feel like a homely. It had a big restaurant, etc. And I completely get why he loved it, because, and that's why I interviewed him some years ago, and because we all did. And I can be chairman of Elstree, but still have a lot of passion and affection for other studios, because it's not us versus them. We all love the industry. We all want it to be great, even, today, but even all those years ago, there was more competition, in fairness. Yeah. But if you think about it now, you've got BBC Studios Works, their production people, they make shows for ITV. And you've got ITV. So ITV are now. I noticed that you've got the Ant and Dec Takeaway is now being made at BBC. Not BBC, at Television Centre. Yeah. It used to be BBC Television Centre. Everything's changed. Everyone's making it for each other. But the industry changed in the 70s, and people went where they felt comfortable. And your dad just found it easier to go back to Pinewood. That's all.
Yeah, makes sense. But by then they'd locked in a lot of the exterior stuff from the early episodes, and so Elstree will forever be locked in time as the home of Harlington Straker Studios and therefore Shadow. So it's not all bad. It wasn't a complete loss for Elstree.
No, not at all. And I think we also need to remember in your dad's case that people tend to think of all the great Anderson productions because he started in film. Many people don't realise he started back in the late 40s. He was in the editing department, in the sound department of film. Yep. He didn't get on with film. And quoting from what he told me. In fact, when I did the book for the 70th anniversary of Pinewood, there's a wonderful section in it. We interviewed some very important people and gave them their own section, some of them. And your dad's got his own section, so he had his own 2-page spread here. And he talks about how they had to put sound and how they had to sync sound in those days by cutting bits of film together and looping it. You know, he didn't just start with the puppets and those shows. He started in film. He saw how tough it was in days when there wasn't computers to do it all for us. He really cut his teeth at the cutting edge of the industry. So he started in the studios, as I think it's 1949, he got his first job. And he was working, I think, for Betty Box. Now, Betty Box was the country's first proper female producer. I'd say proper. There was Muriel Box as well, the Box family. But she produced all the Doctor films. Her husband was Peter Rogers. He directed all the Carry On films. They, between them, made 100 films. But he was working for her in the early days. And that was a Pinewood too. So I suppose returning to Pinewood wouldn't have been a great strain because it was like coming home for him. And he actually said that to me. It felt like I was coming home.
Yeah, well, that's the very reason that his ashes were laid to rest there as well, because it was his kind of dream place to be. He always wanted to have his office there. And I'm sure when you spoke to him there, he probably felt very at home. I imagine him holding court. So what was that experience like, Maurice? I hope he was well behaved and was very nice to you.
First, if he wasn't, I wouldn't say it live anyway, or even record it. Secondly, I come into this interview, no strings, ha ha ha. No, seriously, it's interesting for me because I've been a journalist and I've interviewed many people. I was a political journalist for many years. But for me, I always got most anxious when I was going to go and interview a hero. And your dad, I mean, what was I? I was in my 40s by then. We're talking about 12, 13 years ago. I was going to interview a hero. I know he was sort of semi-retired by then, and, you know, we were looking back at work mainly of the past. But even so, this is a man that I was turning on my television 35 years before that, and this is the man that made this stuff. And he couldn't have been more welcoming. And there's a fine line when you're a journalist. It's okay to be a fan. Christopher Lee said this to me. Christopher Lee said to me, he said, Maurice, it's okay to be a fan. He said he was filming many, many years ago in the early 50s, and Gary Cooper was on another stage, and it obviously had a break in filming, and he came in, and he stood at the back of the soundstage in which Christopher Lee was filming. And Christopher Lee said it's the only time, he said, and I think in all the films I ever made that I froze, because there was a hero standing there. But you have to put that to one side, and you have to be professional. But your dad was lovely. He was in his office at Pinewood, very welcoming. We had a lovely chat. I think I recorded it, so I didn't have to write down too much, because I like to be able to look at the person. And the passion was still there. The twinkle was still there. He was surrounded by some of his great creations and some great posters. Gave me a book. Gave me the complete Gerry Anderson, the authorized episode guide, and he signed it inside. I have it in front of me here. And when we were putting the book together, the Pinewood 70th anniversary, I said, look, I really want Gerry Anderson to be one of these centre spreads. There's only about half a dozen there, because of, I think, the contribution he made to so many people's lives. Because you get so many people who come into the industry because of how they were made to feel when they were younger by what they were watching, whether it be Morecambe and Wise, whether it be Laurel and Hardy, whether it be Thunderbirds. And I think that we looked back at our heroes and they got us partly to where we are as a consequence. And so he was absolutely delightful. And I think, as I said, that was when we were saying, Gerry, this is for a book about the history of Pinewood's 70th anniversary. He was really proud to be part of that history. And so, yeah, he was absolutely delightful. And by the end of it, he was just like a favoured old uncle. Yes, he was holding court. He loved it. Who wouldn't have done? But it was just like being in the company of a favoured old uncle. And I was very privileged to meet him. And I should always remember that. He was a really nice guy. You see, and you know it yourselves, and we won't name anyone, but you'll meet people in this industry who you hold up to quite high esteem, who you discover may not necessarily deserve that adulation. Right? We've all met them. And then there are some who are exactly as you would expect, and they're just nice people. And there are some who are just on that next level. And there's two people. There was Gerry Anderson for me. Well, three in fairness. Gerry Anderson, your dad, who was just everything I thought he'd be and more. There was Kenneth Williams, who was a big hero who I did get to meet a few occasions. And there was Jack Lemmon, who's my favourite actor, and I got to meet him. And I would say that those are the three people who, when I met them, just filled me with deep joy. It was in the days before we did selfies, but we got to sign stuff. I do have a picture of Jack Lemmon from the late 80s. But you know what? It's those people that that really make it for people. And as I say, what was interesting about Gerry is behind the scenes, in the later years became a bit more well-known on television through documentaries, but he was never one to push himself forward like actors do. But no, I hold him up there because of the joy, and it's sustainable. The very fact it is even today sustainable all these years later, and you're involved with productions bringing them into the 21st century, shows that he deserves his place, not just in history of television and cinema, but also in the affections of an adoring worldwide nation of television and media fans. And I think he'll always have that. And there's that saying, is there not, that someone is only forgotten when their name is spoken for the last time.
Yeah.
Your dad's never going to be forgotten. I mean, because his work will never be forgotten, and he's so linked with it. So, as I say, it was a great honour and a great privilege, and he's in my top 5 people I've ever met.
Amazing. I'm honoured. I'm proud that he's in that list, Maurice, and there's some great sound bites there. So this sort of brings us to a perfect point to round things off. So from your experience of looking at the industry as a whole, changing over the years, your experience now as chairman of Elstree, and having met Dad and spoken to him, I often ask people what they think it is about the shows that make them so timeless and keep them in the public consciousness and keep firing the passions of millions all over the globe. But what do you think it was about him? What was it that you could see in him that made him this creative force?
I think he was a professional. I think he was punctilious about getting it right. And I think by the nature of the kind of productions he was making, if you think about, we're talking about puppets, if you think about what he had to do to get everything right, meant that he was, and I say punctilious is a great word because it shows that every single detail, every single frame had to work and had to count. That makes him a good producer because actually producers have to think about the financial side as well of a production. You have to make everything count. Makes you a good editor because you know exactly what works and doesn't work. And actually that makes you a good director because if you can edit as you're going along, again, you can keep the cost down, but also you can see how it all fits together. It's about being multi-talented. And I think that your father had that all in his head. And also he came up with productions which were timeless. What do I mean by that? There are certain shows today you can still watch, whether it be old comedies like Are You Being Served or Dad's Army. Why do 1 million people watch Dad's Army every week? Not just because it's a brilliant comedy, not just because there's a group of people who still think about the end of the war, but because it's timeless, because most people never lived in that time. So it never dates. Good comedy never dates. Good productions never date. So your father's shows were very much set, most of them set in the future, not all of them, but set in the future. And the ones that tend to be most resilient are the ones that are set in the future because we've never got there. So they don't date. There's always a bit of excitement about what could happen. This could still happen. And there'll be people who will be watching it thinking, not just from a televisual production side, how it was made, but from fans thinking, God, look at that. They thought of that idea. And that happens now. We can now do that. Your father was far-sighted, like the Bonds people. Look, you can do hoverboards and stuff now. And I think that's where people admire it too. It was very far-sighted, but it was very much down to detail. Young people are probably your harshest critics, right? They will spot something like they do. If they spot something that's not right, they tell you. But the children they were aghast at it, and their eyes, I know how I felt. And I think that's because he had an attention to detail. I think about, if you think something, if it would make young people happy, it will make the older people happy as well. And I think he knew his audience as well. When he got into it, he didn't want to do it to begin with, as you know, wasn't very keen on doing the public stuff, but then he threw himself into it, the professional that he was. And that's what it is. It's about having an eye for it all and getting it all to work and just taking a few risks. Yeah. Don't be too safe. We see what happens when television and film gets too safe. People get bored. Take a few risks. If people like your work, they go on the journey. And they went on the journey for many, many series and for many, many years. And they still do nostalgically. So, yeah, that's what I think of your dad, a very professional, punctilious man with a lot of foresight.
Amazing. What a great and very kind summary, Maurice. That is the perfect place to leave this. Thank you so much for your time. If people want to find you online or find out what's going on at Elstree, what is going on and what could people look forward to?
Well, Elstree Studios, that phoenix has risen from the ashes over the last 20 years. Smaller in size than it was, but it was starting to expand. We're looking at putting in 2 new stages at the back where Big Brother, because Big Brother had the Big Brother house there for 16 years. That space is now available near the water tank that they use for the dam buses and Moby Dick. That space is now available. So we're looking at putting in 2 new stages. BBC are staying where they are in Bournemouth with their Elstree studios as well. So that's expanding. And now Sky Studios have announced that they're building a new 14-stage or 12-stage studios near to us, just up the road. And we have a university technical college as well. So Elstree and all the studios which are now beginning to build up again is becoming once again the British Hollywood. We have The Crown filming there. Strictly loves working there. Lots of good television because it's easy to get an audience in there. High-end drama and film. The British Hollywood is really returning back to Elstree, and I am so proud to be such a very, very small part of what is something that we all love and adore, our studios and our productions, but also that we can leave it and to the next generation to carry it on and just keep, we love what we see, but if we want more of it, we have to make sure we have the young people being trained in the skills and they've got the places to film in. And we're doing that with University Technical College, which is literally 200 yards, 300 yards from the studios. We've got our studios, which are going from strength to strength, and all the hub around us. So, 20 years on from when Elstree got taken over by the council, and almost 95 years old now, our studios. I think we're fitter now than we have been in a long time. And I look forward to that being the case for many more years.
Amazing. Fantastic. And Maurice, if people want to follow you personally, you're on Twitter, right?
If they want to follow me personally, they'll catch me down at the Bournemouth and Elstree station on a Thursday evening. Or they can, I've been warned off about that. Or they can get me on Twitter, which is Morris, MORRIS, _Bright, BRIGHT. And if you want to know what's going on at Elstree Studios, we have a web page, which is obviously run by the studios. Do have a look at what we're doing and do, apply for audience tickets. Come and be part of the Elstree story, because without an audience, whether it be at home or whether it be coming in, we wouldn't have what we have. Everyone's part of it. Come and be part of it.
Fantastic. There you go, listeners. You know what to do now. Go and follow Maurice and go and check out Elstree. Maurice, thank you so much for your time. You've been brilliant.
Thank you, Gerry. Thank you. Sorry, I've called you after your father's name. But thank you too. It's really lovely to talk to you and share time with yourself, a fellow fan, and with such a pedigree, and carrying on your father's work and his memory. You should be very proud, because I know we all loved it, and thank you for that as well.
Thank you, Maurice.
Yeah, I really enjoyed both those parts of that interview, actually. Really interesting and fun stuff as well.
Yeah. And also, I think I mentioned last week, I really like Maurice's analysis of Dad as a professional.
Yes.
Rather than what we normally talk about, which is the Gerry Anderson-ness of productions.
Yeah.
He kind of picked up a lot of aspects of Dad's character from a short conversation at Pinewood.
Right.
So, yeah, really interesting. Thank you so much, Maurice. You were a star. And hopefully at some point, maybe we could... when we're allowed out, we can pop down to Elstree Studios and do something from Neptune House, which is, of course, the exterior of Shadow HQ.
Yes, that would be amazing, wouldn't it?
He's definitely up for us paying a visit, so hopefully we can do something there in due course.
I mean, it seems a long time ago that we were there for the ITC
thing, yeah. 5 months?
Yeah.
6 months?
A world away.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Gosh,
we were mingling. It was
trip.
quite a busy room, wasn't it? We were all sitting next to each other.
It was, again. And now...
Yeah.
Human contact is no longer allowed.
We've
still got the podcast.
Yeah.
Next week is David Holt, who is Captain Thrice and Sproggle in Lavender Castle, and was an Anderson fan before then too. That'll be the first of 2 parts.
Yeah.
I've also got upcoming chats with David Tremont from Weta.
Oh, well done.
And Chris Bowden, who was a producer on Lavender Castle, worked with Dad on and off on lots of things, was at Cosgrove Hall, and then is now a producer for Mackinnon and Saunders.
Nice.
So all sorts of interesting people coming up.
Yeah.
And more besides. We'll have to see how the rest of the interviews go.
Yeah.
But one thing we can guarantee is that up until Pod 100 at least, we'll be bringing you new and interesting interviews. After that, who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm glad to hear and see, Jamie, that you're looking ahead to Pod 100, but perhaps you should be looking even further ahead, according to Mark Simpson-Wedge, who got in touch at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, saying, "Hello, gentlemen and Podstrons, hoping you're all keeping well and secure." Yes, thank you, Mark, and you too. He says, Personally, I'm enjoying it at the moment because it's allowing me to concentrate on something special for 2021. I have big plans for the most ambitious YouTube project I've ever done, and I'm hoping to throw in some Anderson references too. Right now I can't say too much because a lot of it is still secret, but if anyone is interested in participating in it, you're welcome to take part. Talking of YouTube, he says, I do have a couple of things I'd like to share. Firstly, if anyone is looking for any of my Anderson-related videos, I've changed my channel name from Dalek Sram to Mark SW. Because, he says, a lot of people know who I am, so now is a good time for me to go by my real name, which is fair enough.
Absolutely.
Then he says the second point is that I have an idea for videos for your channel, but it would only work if YouTube is still around for 2029, which would be Gerry's 100th birthday.
Absolutely. I'm sure it will be.
Yeah, well, he says you could ask people to vote or mention their favourite moments from Anderson TV shows and films, and then make 10 videos listing the top 100 moments. Hopefully this has given you some ideas. Enjoy the rest of your day, from Mark Simpson Wedge. So we'll write that down for 9 years' time, because that's a pretty good idea.
Absolutely. Yes. Imagine if we're still doing the podcast in 9 years' time.
Crikey.
Well, I mean, why wouldn't we?
Well, why wouldn't? We've got nothing else to do if it carries on like
Exactly.
this for the next 9 years.
Hang on, so was that 10 videos each containing a top 100? Or
That's 10 videos listing their top 100 moments, yeah.
So top 1,000 moments?
Well, I suppose it would be if you put it like that, yes.
Yeah.
Why not?
Fair enough.
Yeah, and finally, hello chaps. On your latest podcast, you asked about heroes such as the NHS, social care, etc. I would like to mention a service which often gets overlooked during times like this, says Lewis. In principle, it's not a nice sounding job, but it is essential, and that is pest control. Being in the industry, I know how hard we work. We're working flat out to ensure the hospitals, supermarkets, etc. are safe and can remain open. I appreciate this may be a topical subject with many views, but I'd like to give a shout out to all of us working in pest control, and I'd like to highlight its importance. Thank you once again. Stay safe and happy. FAB from Lewis. Fair enough.
Thanks, Lewis. Absolutely, I will add pest control onto my list of people we're very grateful to at this unprecedented time.
Yeah, exactly. All right for us, isn't it? All snug in our houses.
Yeah, exactly. But we're not on the front line dealing with this stuff, are we?
No.
So,
No. Many
actually, I have
people
to say, on the couple of occasions I've managed to get out to the supermarket for essentials, it's actually been really nice to see how pleasant everybody is and how, people, on the front lines in the supermarkets are staying smiley and cheery and kind and nice.
Yeah.
There's actually a lot of kindness and positivity going on at a difficult time.
Let's hope that that's the one thing we've learned through all this, that it costs nothing to say thank you to the person behind the counter when you pick up your shopping.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or any other moment of human interaction.
Indeed.
So,
Indeed. So,
thank
Jamie,
you, Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
For what, I'm not sure, but thanks.
Rude. Someone else we should thank is Chris Dale.
Oh, yeah?
Because every week
I
he brings
know.
us a brand new randomizer.
How does he do that?
Well, I think he presses a button and he gets given an episode and then he watches it.
Fair enough.
It kind of makes it sound like a bit less effort.
He does,
somehow.
when you put it like that, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, Chris, we're very grateful. And of course, from the 5th, which is the day before this is released, I think, hopefully all being well, you can go and listen to the randomizer in isolation.
Right.
Topical word.
Yes.
Over at the Gerry Anderson Randomizer podcast. Just search Gerry Anderson Randomizer on your podcast provider of choice and you'll find it there. The first 5 episodes should already be up.
Oh, great.
You can go and watch 5 episodes of Anderson stuff with Chris's commentary and have a jolly old time.
Nice. Great.
But now, let's hand over to the 95th edition, or is it the 94th? Because we did that podcast
it'll be the
one without
94th,
the thing.
yes, that's
the
true.
94th edition on Pod 95 of Chris Dale's Marvellous Randomizer.
Go on then.
Must try and get help.
Made it.
Who are you?
Oh, hello. It's Chris Dale here, and Marina here.
Rescue?
Rescue? Oh, no. See, we're just looking for a quiet spot to do this week's randomizer, and we thought the Bank of England vault might be just the place. Take the machine through for me, Marina. You see, it's another long one this week. Here's UFO with the responsibility seat.
This is ridiculous.
So we're back for some more UFO. I believe this is our 4th visit to UFO on the randomizer. to an episode that I don't honestly remember being one of the greats. I know it's not one of the worst, but this is one that I'm not too excited to see come up.
How's everything going? Oh, quiet. Good.
I hate episodes of UFO where things are happening. That's just terrible, Alec.
I want to talk to you about the new leave roster for Moonbase. It'll have to be changed. And who tells them?
So this is going to be an episode of UFO dealing with admin problems. Well, at least so far, anyway.
Straker.
Joe Fraser is in reception, sir.
Who?
The reporter from the press agency.
There we have it, another Fraser.
You agreed to the interview last week.
So many Frasers in the Gerry Anderson universe. It's
No, you're head of the studio. It's you he wants to interview.
It's got to be the most. I would say it's got to be the most common surname in the Anderson universe. Paul is undoubtedly the most common first name.
It won't be that bad. GPA will syndicate the story and keep the rest of the press off your back.
Yeah, so here we have this reminder that Commander Straker is actually in charge of a huge film studio. Well, supposedly.
Yes, sir.
We never quite knew who Harlington was. It was Harlington Straker, but we never knew who Harlington was. And
Before we start, I must tell you that I'm a very busy man, Mr. Fraser.
Oh, he thought it was a man. It's actually a girl reporter.
Apologise. My name is Josephine Fraser.
God, these girls. They get up to all sorts nowadays, don't they?
World, Joe is more convenient.
Played by Jane Merrow, who was Girl of the Week in a lot of ITC shows like The Saint and the Baron and all that. But for some reason, in this episode, she is dubbed.
Do you tape record the interview and take notes? I noticed the microphone in the front of your purse.
Oh, that's to ensure I don't misquote you. And the notepad's for my impressions.
And the voice isn't too far from...
First impressions are so important.
From Jane's natural voice. I believe she's dubbed by an actress called Nikki Van der Zyl, who is...
Thank you, Skydiver. I'll tell Commander...
all over these ITC shows. Quite a lot of dubbing in this, and Space 1999. Oh dear. I just waffled over... one of the more awkward moments of the show. We'll gloss past that. But, yeah, she's probably best known for...
Trench. Sylvia Trench. I admire your luck, Mr...
Bond. James Bond.
That.
The age of chivalry was dead.
Oh, no, I have to go up on the studio lot. It's on the way.
I can't really think that Jane would have been giving a catastrophically different performance to all the other ones she gave during the ITC era, so I can't figure out why this change was made. But anyway, she's done with the interview, left her handbag behind.
Well, thank you. You've been very kind.
A pleasure.
Oh, good old Ed. He's a gentleman. Oh, he can give her a little cheeky grin. Yeah, always an odd reminder that Ed Straker, the man who essentially has the safety of the world in his hands, is also the head of a film studio, and he has to deal with those problems.
Commander Straker.
And yet Ford will call his office, calling him Commander Straker, which is the catalyst for this entire episode, of course. But I find that... I would have thought that would be rule number one. If you're going to call Straker's film studio office from Shadow Control, do not use...
Commander Straker!
That.
Miss Fraser, I didn't expect you back.
I left my handbag.
I'll get it for you.
No, it's all right. I'll get it.
Stand by.
And now we think Straker's about to bite the bullet.
When I give the word.
Oh, men are aiming guns on him. And those white-trousered legs are walking along, and...
Now!
And even though that's not Straker, and this is all just part of a film they're shooting on the set, that is a really gruesome bit of blood splattering on that guy's face. And of course, it's just a massive coincidence that he happens to look like Straker.
Good morning, Roy.
Well, good morning, Mr. Straker.
Well, you died beautifully.
Thank you. I don't get much on the blood, though.
Oh, by the way, Roy, we finally got that contract matter all straightened out.
By the way, Roy, you sound like Lieutenant Ford. Have that checked out, will you? So, the longest... I think I would have to guess this is the longest teaser in UFO history. We are, 8 minutes in. We finally get those 3 magic letters. And for such a long opening, it was very confused. Well, not so much confused as just sort of, okay, we're going with this then. Some kind of intrigue relating to the film studio side of things. And I can't remember if I've said this before, but I loved a little detail that was introduced in, I think, one of the novelizations regarding the output of the film studio, is that Straker set up the film studio essentially to make a loss, to churn out just unremarkable rubbish, in the hopes that nobody would look too closely at the studio and discover shadow control underneath. But unfortunately, the public really liked the rubbish that Harlington Straker Studios put out, which really annoyed Straker because they have to keep making it. I thought that was a lovely bit of backstory.
Only Miss Fraser. She came back for her handbag. She left it in your office.
You didn't let her go in there.
Well, only for a moment.
Ultra super duper maximum security of Shadow is just sort of been relaxed a bit today.
Straker.
Voice print positive. Identification, Commander Straker.
I suppose it is nice that they've realised that having Straker having to deal with film studio business and alien busting business in the same office could potentially be a problem.
I think first impressions are so...
Alec, Ford.
Oh, I love the way they look at each other. There's like, oh God, what now? What have we done now?
Did anyone call me during the last 15 minutes?
I bleeped you on the studio lot.
No, I mean the office up top, over the intercom.
Well, yes, I tried there first.
What did you say?
Well, just Commander Straker. There was no reply, so I clicked off.
Commander Straker. Well, thank you, Ford.
And Ford doesn't even seem to twig that he probably shouldn't have said that.
How could I be so stupid, Alec?
But Straker's going to blame himself.
Tape recorder. It was left in the office. The chances are it picked up Ford's voice over the intercom.
Assuming it was picked up, what could it mean to anyone?
Not a lot, I agree. But maybe just enough for that woman reporter and her press friends to start snooping around.
It was a girl.
Oh, that's piqued Alec's interest. This is a very tenuous hook to lay an episode on.
Get on to the global press agent.
Someone might have heard something a bit suspicious. Oh.
It's urgent.
Yes, sir.
What was she like?
Would she go out with me?
Intelligent.
Attractive?
Would you rate her out of 10? Ed, I need to know these things.
Yes, Miss Eland?
I just called the press agency, sir. They've never heard of Miss Fraser.
But they say she is pretty.
Check all the other agencies. I want her found. Intelligent. Attractive. And a possible security leak.
Maybe we should institute a rule saying don't call Commander Straker up top. That's just one step away from saying, Commander Straker, aliens are come. Aliens everywhere, sir.
Well, I still think I should go.
Well, it's simple enough, Alec. Find Miss Fraser and get the tape. A lot.
Now, I'm in charge of a multi-billion-dollar organization dedicated to protecting the Earth from aliens, so clearly I'm the best person to deal with this, Alec.
The responsibility seat. The, other side of the fence.
Because, it's not like Shadow don't have their own ruthless security force.
Every few hours.
No, Ed's going to deal with it himself. But I'm sure he's got no ulterior motive in that department. No. Oh, good. Something's happening.
Base on positive track, range 20 million miles, closing.
Termination?
It should be through any second.
Is it Southern England?
Tell Moonbase to launch the interceptor.
It's probably Southern England.
Red alert. Red alert.
Yeah, a bit of funky interceptors. Although I'm always worried whenever I see the interceptor launch sequence, because the lid of each of the launch silos only just retracts far enough in time not to collide with the missile on the front of the interceptor. It bugs me every time. Just a split second either way could have led to disaster, which is more interesting than anything that's happened so far. Straker is checking hotels. Oh, well, we interrupt this exciting phone call action to bring you some space adventure stuff.
5 million miles.
So that was a radar showing 3 contacts near 1 contact, but we have 3 interceptors and 3 UFOs, so... And also that shot from the Dalatech affair, they keep reusing of 3 UFOs scope past, and one of them leaves behind that little jamming device, like a star in the centre of the screen. That always bugs me as well. Well, that's 2 UFOs down.
Missile 3 not confirmed. UFO changing course, moving out of range.
Keith, stop doing your interceptor pilot impressions. So 1 UFO has got through. And Alex not too pleased about that.
I have a sighting bearing green 042, maintaining stationary position at 50,000 feet Earth's atmosphere.
Ooh, could be that UFO. But there's no hurry. Oh, we're not even going to follow that scene. We're back with Straker. I think I'm beginning to see why... Oh, no, we're back to the... What is happening?
Yes.
We're back at Shadow Control now.
Mr. Straker on the line, sir. He wants to know how things are going.
Tell him everything's fine. No trouble.
Straker's on his phone while driving. That's never a good thing.
But we have an unidentified radar trace.
Yes?
Then something's there.
I guess so, but...
And it could be that...
You don't have to do anything.
Practically stationary. In my opinion, it's 1,000,000 to 1 against.
Just because we know one got through.
We'll maintain a full alert radar track.
No. Launch Sky 1. Tell Waterman to investigate.
Yes, sir.
Oh, so Ford isn't all on board with Alex's decision there, but of course he's going to carry it out anyway.
This is Shadow Control to Skydiver. Launch Sky 1, investigate possible UFO.
Roger, Control. Out. Launch stations.
Launch stations!
I'm also looking at the uniforms of the Skydiver personnel. Everyone seems to have different coloured trousers.
Captain.
I know the tops are fairly uniform, except for the colour around the collar, which I think denotes rank. But everyone seems to have different trouser arrangements. You can tell I'm really gripped by this episode that I'm looking at everybody's trousers.
Checking boosters.
So in order of darkest to lightest trousers, we have Sylvia Howell's trousers are the darkest. Gordon Maxwell's are somewhere in the middle, and then Lieutenant Master's trousers are almost the same colour as his top. I don't know what this symbolises. If anybody could explain it to me. Anyway, Lou Waterman's taken to the air in Sky 1, and this may be a slightly heretical thing to say, but I always prefer Lou Waterman to Peter Carlin. I don't know, he just... I really don't know, but I just prefer the guy.
I think I can see it.
He can see it. Yep, he can see it. He can see it, and it's not a UFO.
Panic over. It's a weather balloon.
Freeman can't handle weather balloons. He's leaving. He's going to go and hide in Straker's office. Well, that was something. Anyway, 57 hotels later, Straker has finally found Miss Fraser.
Miss Fraser,
How did you find me?
the studio gate logs all license plate numbers. From that, I got your address. Who do you work for?
Myself.
And sell whatever you get to the highest bidder, huh?
Look, I'm sorry I lied. But if I hadn't said I was from GPA, you wouldn't have seen me at all, would you?
Just give me the tape, Miss Fraser, and we'll call it a day.
So this doesn't look suspicious at all that the head of the studio would come and come after this tape personally. But she's given it back to him.
You played it back.
There wasn't time.
I don't know how she's only just managed to get home herself, but oh, now she smacked him over the head. Taken the tape and a handbag and legged it. Poor old Ed. Now we have a car chase. Unfortunately, much of it is back projection car chase. Oh no, this is... There are some nice sort of, real on-location type shots here. I mean, that doppelganger car seems to be going very fast for once. Some nice close-ups of it. This almost looks like it was shot on a racetrack. But then we have these insert shots of them looking at each other, which are on, that they're in the car in the studio with the back projection or whatever it is, speeding along behind them. And that bit where they pull up alongside each other is... Ooh. Yeah. Which is a shame, because actually this is... has been a reasonably effective sequence. Oh. And that was that. So Jane has crashed her car. Ed's going to, try and get the tape back again, probably. Oh, enough of that scene.
Well, why don't you say it?
If you just sign this, please, sir.
Oh, get out of here.
Even a practice launch for Skydiver needs an authorization.
Hold it, Keith. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's just... Alec can't handle this pressure. He just really cannot handle it.
Can you imagine what Straker would have said?
Yes, sir.
Would say, what the heck happened to the regular Alec Freeman? Why have we got this wuss this week? Because this is very out of character behaviour for Alec. We've seen him in positions of command and under pressure before, and he's never reacted so... Oh, what would Straker do? What would Straker do? He was with the Air Force, I believe. We learned that in Confetti Check A-OK. That's basically the only thing we know about his history.
Failed.
So he should be able to handle the...
I've only had one article published in the last month.
The pressures of command better than he does here. I have a theory, as Dr. Einstein would say, as to why exactly that is, and perhaps we'll get more into that later. For now, we're off to the moon, because, well, we haven't been there this week so far.
Is it still there?
Yes, Lieutenant.
Ask Colonel Foster to come in. And get control. You'll want to speak to Commander Straker.
Right.
And this feels like the point where they realised we really do not have enough material for this episode. So now we bring in another subplot.
I have Colonel Foster on the video link, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, just makes my day.
Hello, Paul. What's your problem?
Well, we've picked up radio signals about 50 miles east of the base. It's some sort of vehicle. It's moving on an erratic course, but...
Yeah, this runaway moon vehicle plot, which suddenly turns up halfway through the episode.
Radio contact, but no joy. If it maintains its present course and speed, it'll run straight into us.
Ooh.
It'll be a couple of hours before there's any real danger.
Well, get onto it right away.
There, I made a decision. God, I'm a real man.
Lieutenant, I want an immediate rundown on all installations on the moon operating surface vehicles.
There, I did that too. Yeah, my theory regarding Alec's general uselessness in this episode, this is headcanon, which I think there's room for, because ultimately all of this is just fiction, and it's up to each of us to sort of rationalise it in their own way. I feel that at some point after A Question of Priorities, spoiler alert, by the way, spoiler alert, Freeman found out about the death of Straker's son.
It's a dirty world. Sometimes you have to cut a few corners.
And he...
To get what you want.
Realised, oh wait, if I hadn't given the order to divert that transporter that was carrying the medicine that would have saved his life, then maybe he wouldn't have died. So I think Freeman found out, blamed himself, and that accounts for so much of why he has no faith in himself in this episode.
You've heard it.
There's nothing on screen to back that up at all. It's just I think it would be a very UFO kind of thing, because Straker clearly didn't tell Freeman, and I think if Freeman found out later, he wouldn't necessarily tell Straker.
You don't believe me?
He would just try to live with the idea that he had indirectly or directly, if you want to be a bit cruel, caused or contributed to the death of his best friend's son. Again, that's just headcanon, but
Well, what do you think?
It's the only way I can rationalise the fact that Freeman is suddenly this
Thanks.
incompetent, timid, He's almost on the point of crying in some scenes in this.
Right, sir.
I open the door, let Ford out. I'm a real man, I can do man things.
Interceptors 1, 2, and 3. Immediate launch.
Now we just have this long, pitiful shot of Freeman just sat in Straker's office twiddling his thumbs. What'll solve that problem? What solves all Freeman's problems? A nice little drinky from the drink cabinet in the corner. And we're now at Straker's house, because I kind of waffled over the fact that with Joe Fraser having hit Straker over the head with a very heavy object, which could potentially have caused severe brain damage, and then him causing her to crash her car, he then bought her dinner and has taken her back to his house. Which is, I think, the only time we see Straker's house in the show.
Well, I'll get things moving in the kitchen.
Can I help you?
Oh, no. Okay, they didn't have dinner, they just had drinks.
I left the wine in the car.
I'll get it.
And he's bought her wine.
Oh. Thanks.
I don't see the progression from possible security risk to... Ed, she hit you over the head and could have killed you. Why are you... Why? What? Whoa, no.
Yes, Miss Eland?
I have Commander Straker on the line, sir.
Oh, you better tell him...
Tell him I miss him and I want him back and this is a scary job and I don't want it anymore.
Back tomorrow morning.
Oh, Miss Eland, I want you to do a voice check for me. It's Miss Fraser.
You mean a G6, sir?
Yes, that's right, Miss Eland. The full G6.
Hello, Miss Eland.
You're working very late tonight.
As this is part of a cunning plan to check out Miss Fraser's credentials. You know, aside from the credentials of smashing Straker's head in with a...
Well, why don't you help yourself to a drink, and I'll go out and break out the can opener.
Hey.
Why is she letting him loose in his house? No, wait. Why is he letting her loose in his house? Why? I mean, it's nice that he's thought she might be a bit dodgy enough to run the check. But again, I don't understand that check, because they're going to match her records based on a recording of her voice. Now, photographs, fingerprints, no, none of that. We're just going to match it to her voice, because as we all know, anybody who commits a crime always does so with words, with a lot of speaking. Yeah, it's probably a side effect of not having enough story and having too many subplots that the Straker-Fraser relationship in this doesn't really have time to develop naturally to the point where they need it to be for the end of the story. So Straker just kind of looks like a complete buffoon. You know, she hit me over the head. She bugged my office. She ran away when I tried to get that recording back, but I'm gonna take her home and give her dinner.
No, Ed, you're a terrific cook.
I just follow the instructions on the can.
And it's a very oddly decorated house that Straker has as well. If you're expecting any sort of revealing insight into his character, the house itself doesn't do that. There's one line here that does, though.
You know, you have a nice home here.
It's a place to sleep. You know, it's funny, Joe. I enjoyed today.
Particularly the part where you nearly caved my skull in. I like things like that. So basically, Straker felt sorry for her because she's not been doing very well on the whole freelancing thing. And I can relate, but...
Base about 120 miles east of Moonbase.
Yeah.
Russian?
Yes, it's a mobile...
Nobody's taken me home and given me a candlelit dinner and wine.
Get onto their base. Tell them unless they divert their machine.
I'll explain the situation, sir.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you for saving me that job.
We understand your concern, but we still can't establish radio contact with the crew.
Send out a moonmobile. Try to establish visual contact with the crew.
Right.
I would have to wonder as well what if there are any like underground installations at Moonbase, sort of somewhere where the crew can hide out if, in case of, for instance, you know, a runaway Russian thingy driving into them, or do they just evacuate in the interceptors and the mobiles? I don't know. Anyway, we're back at Straker's groovy pad, and we're having a bit of post-dinner sexual tension. Because if you're a fan of awkward silence and people staring at each other from across the room, this is the episode for you. And it's a shame because Ed Bishop, and I think Jane Merrow as well, are trying their best with this, but it's just so contrived. I repeat, she tried to cave his skull in with a really heavy ornament thingy. And now he's like, well, that turns me on. I'm going to take her home with me. Oh, the music's building. She sat down beside him, giving that hair a bit of a stroke. You know what I miss? I miss dialogue. I miss people talking to each other. Oh, now we're back with the Russians. I'm not sure I'm not sure where I'd rather be with this episode, really.
We should be making visual contact any minute.
Oh, actually, no, I am where I want to be. I'm with Paul Foster. And in an episode where Straker is, I don't know, and Alec is just Mr. Timid, Foster is the man. Foster is the man to stick with, I think. Oh, that'll be Alec crying into the phone again.
Straker.
So Miss Eland has come back with the result of this voice check. And Joe's sneaking off to his bedroom.
I see. No, that'll be all right. Right.
I can't believe the woman who tried to cave my skull in is a bad one. How could I have been so wrong? And here we are with this scene that I think is the reason this episode got bumped back in the day. I don't think it was shown on first run in the UK, and then when it was finally shown, it was kicked to like 11:30 at night because of this. I mean, still today rather.
What's the matter, eh?
For UFO, rather racy scene of Jane Merrow in her undies.
Get out.
What's wrong?
I know. That's what's wrong.
Oh. He knows that this woman who did a load of bad things did a load of bad things.
Article published in the last month. A car on hire.
I also feel for Jane struggling to get back into this leftover doppelganger costume.
The hard way.
She's having trouble with it. Nothing seems to make sense for her.
Have mapped out for me. Did you plan to take me for all you could get?
You invited her back to your place for dinner, you idiot. You could have just taken her to the police and said, hey, she assaulted me.
She left in that pretty little head. You must be getting soft.
That's the way you get eaten alive.
That's where you can really notice the dubbing.
Oh, you wouldn't understand.
That's the doorbell.
It's a man's world, remember?
So that was the postman delivering a parcel. I bought the complete Mission Impossible TV series on DVD for £35 from HMV, which is quite a bargain, I suppose. I've never actually seen any of them, but I figure, you know, Martin Landau, Barbara Bain, Peter Graves, Leonard Nimoy, I'm bound to get something out of it. It's got to be more interesting than this. Shall we put Mission Impossible on? And you know, I notice sometimes people say, oh, Chris was down on this episode. I really like it.
Get me a direct radio link.
With the exception of one episode, I don't hate any Gerry Anderson episode out of the 500 odd. It's just some are better than others and some are...
A warning shot.
Look, you're less than 5 miles from Moonbase.
That's a civilian vehicle.
Fire that shot. I'll take the responsibility. Do you read me?
Look, give us a couple of minutes.
We're going to try something.
There we go. Foster has had enough of Alec. Wishy-washy Alec. It's time for a real man to do real man things. What would Shadow do without Paul Foster? I mean, it's like imagining, you know, what would Moonbase Alpha do without Alan Carter, or what would Spectrum do without Captain Magenta? So Paul Foster has left the vehicle, And we get this odd shot of him looking in the direction of the oncoming Russian vehicle that he's going to try and jump on, which is reused footage from Survival because you can see the reflection of the alien in his visor. So just for a moment it looks like he's got out of the vehicle to have a meeting with an alien. Anyway, model vehicle's driving past Model Foster, and we think he got on board.
Has he made it?
I'm not sure. I can't see him. If he's not inside...
He probably got run over, and that means I'm in command of Moonbase, I guess. Oh, he made it. Of course he made it. He's Paul Foster. Oh, look, it's Paul Foster, buddy. Hey!
Listen, they're both incapable.
The air pressure's down. They could be suffering from anoxia.
How far away is it now? 1,500 meters. This is a red emergency alert. Seal all airlocks. All personnel to carry out decompression drill.
Oh, so they don't have any shelters or anything in case of, I don't know, alien attack or runaway vehicle collision. They just sort of
Get onto the Russian base.
close the doors and hope for the best.
The quickest way to stop it is to throw the red master power switch.
Left of center on the control panel.
Right.
And now we have this very odd shot where
There's a red switch on the control.
Gay and Joan have put on spacesuits, and Joan is looking out the window onto a model set, and for some reason this would take someone far more technically minded than me to explain what's going on, but leftover Sidewinder music. The way these shots have been integrated, the yellow spacesuits have suddenly turned white. I mean, maybe these are genuine white helmeted spacesuits. I don't think they... I put up my hands at this point. I don't know what's going on. We need to stop the runaway vehicle, though, throwing the big red lever. Yeah, that must be a goof in the colouring, because Joan's purple wig is now ginger, so they must have dialed the colour down for some reason to make these these opticals work. Foster's knocked out one of the Russian guys, but the other one's picked up a spanner. Oh, it's getting close, getting very close. Joan and Gay's wig has turned ginger as well. Oh dear, I forgot. Yeah, there's a sudden insert shot in this of Freeman looking utterly baffled, which looks like it was shot like several weeks later. He's just got this expression on his face of like, am I even in this episode anymore? Oh, because Foster saved the day with like, an inch to spare before it ran into Moonbase. So Moonbase is saved, the Russians are saved. That was about as exciting as this episode gets.
But I doubt if they'll remember much about the incident. There must have been...
And actually, for a subplot that comes in fairly late in the story, it is...
inducing a sort of drunkenness.
It's always good to see Paul Foster save the day.
Drinking too much whiskey. We call it anoxia.
As Lord knows, Straker and Freeman haven't acquitted themselves very well this
Except
week.
our description would substitute vodka for whiskey.
Because we are Russian, you see.
Good morning, sir. Ford, you were pretty quick with the voice print.
Hello, Miss Eland was enough. The international crime computer did the rest. She's got a record as long as you're on.
Is she wanted by the police?
Not at the moment, but she won't stay out of trouble for long. Her kind never do.
Maybe. Where's Colonel Freeman?
In your office, sir.
Crying, wet himself. I put up a wet floor sign.
Hello, Alec.
Hello.
Well, I hear you had quite a day.
My God, it was only one day. Freeman was in charge for one day and he completely went to pieces. Seemed longer.
Tough decision.
It wasn't quite like that.
Well, whatever way it happened, Alec, you were responsible.
I certainly have to hand it to you.
Hmm?
That Miss Fraser, she didn't have you fooled for a moment. That'd be me, I'd have probably got myself emotionally involved or something.
Yes, I could see how it could happen.
I guess irony can be pretty ironic sometimes.
It's all yours.
Now, the other side of the fence.
So, Did he ever get the tape back? I know he got it back and she then hit him over the head and stole it and ran away again. Well, that was the responsibility seat, and as I said at the start, it's not the worst episode because I think there are some certain earlier episodes that are far worse than this. This just seems a bit confused in its focus and in its characterization. This feels to me more like an episode where that they've realised they're not giving their lead actor enough to do. So they try to make up for it with a story like this, but they don't really... They haven't quite figured it out yet. Unlike later where in episodes like Time Lash and Mindbender, Ed Bishop is front and centre as he should be. Here they're still kind of trying to figure out what exactly they can do with him. I also think this is the episode with the extra bit of music on the end. There. Which was left over from the square triangle. That sting was when Patrick Moore suddenly appeared. Here it just turns up randomly because, I don't know, something notable about this episode.
The responsibility seat.
I've got one of them.
I was going to say that's the name of my chair in my office.
Is it?
Yeah.
I've got the irresponsibility seat in the garage.
I was going to say, not in your car, though.
No, heaven forbid.
No, that's not the place to have that. So yeah, basically all about handbags and leftover doppelganger suits.
Right.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough. Jane Merrow, the lovely Jane Merrow,
yes.
who I'm sure we met. Was she at one of the ITC events? I feel like she probably was.
Yeah, possibly.
But certainly interviewed her for the UFO extras on the Blu-ray. She was good fun.
Yeah.
And a face of many of that ITC era shows.
Yeah.
Was she in The Prisoner as well?
Oh, I don't know. She might have been probably.
I think she was certainly in a few ITC shows. Podsterons, if you know which one she was in, do let us know.
Yes.
And of course, in a classic 60s way, a bit of the, a woman doing a man's job, and also a touch of the Russian accents at the end there.
Yeah,
yes, we're doing vodka.
How funny.
So, yeah.
There we are.
Thank you for that gift.
Yeah.
Late 1960s and early 70s.
Times change.
But still, yeah, not one of the best UFO episodes, but a bit of fun.
Yeah.
And, people who love UFO probably love the responsibility seat. If you love UFO but hate the responsibility seat, you should also email us podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk and let us know why.
Now, I'm a little bereft at the moment, Jamie. Now, Forces TV very often show UFO Space 1999 as part of their programming. Well, as you may know, I've moved in the last couple of weeks. I set up my Freeview box a couple of days in, and a vast amount of channels, including Forces TV, have disappeared from my channel lineup. I know.
Have you retuned it?
I tried retuning it, but it's not there. Yeah.
Oh, no.
I think I'm light by about 30 or 40 channels.
Wow.
Yeah. Horror, Forces TV, TBN.
CBS reality.
All that, yeah, gone.
True crime.
Yeah. So, of course, the thing to do is to get a man out to jiggle around with the aerial. But he ain't going to come at the moment, is he?
Well, probably not, no.
So I think
not really essential.
Yeah, I'm about to get the DVD out.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll do that. Or maybe we can send you a Blu-ray. Have you got a Blu-ray player?
I have got a Blu-ray player somewhere in the garage.
Okay.
I haven't quite unpacked everything yet.
Fair enough. Would you like a Blu-ray of Space 1999?
Cool, yeah.
All right, we'll send you one now.
Lovely, thank you.
And Podsterons, if you'd like to pick up a Blu-ray of Space 1999 next week, or this week coming, at the Easter sale, you can get it for 20% off.
That's right.
Along with everything else. Anyway, that's it.
Yeah.
If you would like to become an Anderson Insider, we'd love to see you there. Please go to patreon.com.
Yeah.
Patreon, .com and search Anderson Insiders, or have a look for the link in the Podsterons Facebook group or anywhere else. You don't have to do it, but if you can support us in that way, we'd be ever so grateful, and we'll share some interesting stuff with you. There's some concept art from an abandoned project called T-Force.
Oh, right.
There's Dad's enlistment notice from him joining the RAF back in 1947.
Interesting.
And there's some lovely wallpaper from Chris Thompson, a stunning image of Stingray against an Icelandic sunset.
How lovely. Great.
With more still to come. So
brilliant.
Go and join us there. But until next week, we're going to go away, but you should definitely subscribe and do all that sort of stuff. How do they do that, Richard?
Well, I think it's quite easy, really. Just head over to whichever platform you're listening to us on. You hit subscribe or follow, I think, and that way you get notifications every time a new podcast appears, so you can be one of the first people to hear it. While you're there, you can leave us a nice rating, of course, a review and a rating, and then share us with your friends so they can hear us too. It's that easy.
Yeah, we'd love you to do that. And people still keep doing it, so we're very grateful indeed.
We are, that's true.
Right, we've taken up enough of your time, Podsteron. Well, I was directing it directly to the one listening
right
now.
I thought you were implying
experience.
we had one listener.
No. To all of you Podsterons who've taken up your time, but I'm particularly talking to you, Podsteron.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, that one there, yeah.
So if you have not left us
Actually,
a
I'm not sure
rating
they're
yet...
Are you even listening? No, I'm not.
They are now.
Oh, they are now, yeah.
Yeah. So if you haven't left us a rating, please do that.
Yeah.
But we will be back in your ears next week. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
Right. And so what's filling your day at the moment, Richard, now that you're in, quarantine, essentially?
Well, it's funny, isn't it? I'm trying to keep busy. I've got things to do. I've got some news of my own on the Bowman of the Yard front, which I shall be sharing on my own Bowman of the Yard podcast.
Oh, how do people find that?
Well, I think they just go to wherever they find their usual podcasts and just search for Bowman of the Yard and have a listen to it there. So that's keeping me busy doing some extra bits of writing and so on. And I'll just say this, sorting out some new covers.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll leave it there.
Okay.
So that's, taking up most of my time, to be honest. And you?
Oh, it's weird. I've never been busier.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of stuff we've been sorting out for the Gerry Anderson store, but also writing bits and pieces. I had to submit some scripts for bits and pieces. Although all the production stuff has suddenly gone to zero, people are looking ahead and going, oh my goodness, we're going to have all these gaps. Yes. We need to do this, we need to do that. So it's all been a bit crazy, but good. Yeah. And obviously we're doing these new audiobook things. I know we've mentioned them.
Oh,
but,
yes. That's right.
Yeah, the first one's done. I've just signed up another well-known voice.
Can you mouth it?
To do...
Get away.
Yeah.
Really?
He's got a little cupboard and he's doing one of the books for us. Yeah.
How on earth can you afford him?
It turns out he's not getting that much work at the moment. And he's a big Thunderbirds fan. So this related project
great.
has piqued his interest.
Nice.
And it's just crazy. But there's lots more coming. And I know you're working on a thing, wink, wink, audible wink.
Yeah, good. Yeah, like it. That's true. When can we talk about that? Soon?
Maybe next week or the week after.
Let's talk about it.
But next week will be the day before Dad's birthday. So we should do something birthday related.
We should,
then.
definitely. Yep.
Let's think about that. Anyway, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.